Okay, so this is the second video I've made for the self-check 6.7. Just trying to get some more examples out there if any of you need it. If you don't need it, don't worry about it. It's just extra help for you if you need. I just want to try to make this as easy as possible for you. Please let me know if there's some things that I can do better, improve on, explain better, or whatever, so that you get the help that you need. So anyway, we'll just start going through this just like we have in the past. I've got to get this little thing up here first so that I can use it. All right, so if we start at this problem right here, we have if BC is 60, so if we just label that as 60, and we want to find the length of FE. So this is the question that we have. If you look at these triangles, you've got this triangle right here, and let me change the color on that to show you the difference. And then you've got the big triangle. So we compare the small to the big, small to the big. So if we were going to set up this equation here, we say the small is x of what we want to know, divide by the big base. Now, because these sides correspond. So x divided by 60 equals. Now, because I have these marks on this left side, that tells me it's in a proportion. And so you have 1 on this small triangle, one side, so that's 1 over here. Over, there's 3 equal portions of the big. So it's just a ratio, that's all you're setting it up. That's how you're setting it up, is just this is to this, this is to this. And remember, this is the small on top, the big on bottom. You could do it the opposite way. 60 over x is equal to 3 over 1, just so long as they match up that way. So 60 times 1 is 60, divide by 3 is 20. So you can see that that answer is right there. We'll just move on to the next problem. Question 2 has one a little bit different. RM right here is 12. So label that. LR, this section right here is 7. MQ, this whole thing right here is 14. And it wants us to find TQ right here. I'll label it X just so that I know what I'm trying to find. And so because these are similar triangles, you've got the right angles here, you've got the same angles going on here. You just set this up in a proportion. All right, so we go the left side to the middle. So you just want to match it up. And by matching it up, whoops, the color didn't change. So like this yellow matches up with this yellow here. This purple side matches up with the whole side here. So I don't know if that helps, but that's how you just have to see the sides of the triangle that correspond. So if we set up our proportion, then we say 7 is this section right here. Divide by the total section. This is 7, this is 12. Add the 2 together to be 19, because you have to have the whole section. You get this portion, divide by the whole section, is equal to this portion. We don't know what TQ is, so I label it X, to the whole portion, which they already told us was 14. So once it's set up, you multiply the two numbers that are across from each other, divide by the other number that's not. So 7 times 14 divided by 19 is equal to 5.16. And it's right there. Okay, scrolling on up, we've got this ratio 1 right here, ratio of BF, so of BF from here to here, to FH. Okay, so from this section to this section is all that it's asking. So if it's one to the other, you would look right here, and that would be the top number, because it's saying what's the ratio of this to this. So this would be the top, this other would be the bottom. So BF to FH look over here and it gives you these proportions right here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. How many portions on the side? FH has 2 portions, so it's 4 to 2. You simplify that and it gives you 2. So that's how you solve that, okay? Because it's just saying what's that ratio. Okay, next problem. Let's just start labeling. BC equals 48 right here. Find the length of FE. Okay. We've got the small triangle to the big. So we just match up those sides that correspond with each. So the small is x, the big is 48. So go x over 48 is equal to the side here. There's 1 equal part, and the whole side is 3. Just as long as I put the big triangle on the bottom, the 3 on the side is the big triangle here. The 48 on the bottom is the big triangle. So see, you have big and big, small and small on the top with the corresponding sides matching up. So 48 times 1 is 48, and divide by 3, and you get 16 right here. Okay, let's start labeling this one right here. MQ, 8. NP, 21. LN, the big thing, is 33.9, and it wants to know what MN is. Okay, so it wants to know what that section is. So here's how you set that up. You have a small to a big, and you want to do the section. So this part we're going to have to label a little bit differently because we do not know what this section is over here. We have to go small to big and then small to big. But the way you figure this out, this small part right here, since we want to know what x is the total 33.9 minus x. So LM is the small part of this triangle right here. So the way you set that up then would be the small 33.9 minus x, divide by the big side, and that is equal to the small divided by the big of the same corresponding sides, the bases. Now I can't compare 8 to 33 because this is a base and this is one of the sides. You have to compare side to side, base to base, or the right side to the right side. However you do that, you just have to keep your proportions and, they have to correspond with one another. So it's not as easy as just multiplying and dividing. It just takes a little bit longer steps. So now you cross multiply and figure out from there. So 21 times 33.9 minus x equals 33.9 times by 8. So let's 33.9 times by 8. On this side, you have 271.2. And on the left side, you distribute through. 21 times 33.9 is equal to 711.9 minus 21x, because I multiplied 21 by both things. So now I want the x's on one side, the numbers on the other. Subtract 711.9, and it gives me negative 21x equals, and just type that in your calculator, 271.2, subtract 711.9, and I'm given negative 440.7. Now, if I divide both sides by negative 21, so take that negative 440.7, divide it by, should be 1 there, negative 21, and that equals 20.99. Now just look over. Is x what we're trying to find? We called this x. Look up here. Mn is indeed x. And so this is the answer, 20.99. All right, geometric mean. When we calculate a geometric mean, the geometric mean of two numbers is when you multiply the two numbers together and take the square root. Is means equals. So 56a, because 56 times a is 56a, and take the square root of it, it equals, that's the geometric mean, it equals 20 times the square root of 14. So since I have square root on both sides and I need to solve for a, I've got to square both sides because it's the opposite of square root. This square and square root cancel each other out, leaving me on the left side with 56a. Now on the right side, 20 is not inside the square root. So that's equal to 20 squared, and then the square root and the squared cancel each other out. So 20 squared times a single 14, because the square will cancel the square root, but 20 still needs to be squared. So multiply that out, 20 squared times by 14, and you get 5,600. On this side with 56a here. Divide both sides by 56, and you have a equals 100. So you'll just type in 100 there, because it's asking for what the value of a is. All right, moving on to the next problem. Here we go, question 7. If BC equals 95, in each of these problems, I'm just solving as we go. I haven't pre-planned them, and so I might take a wrong turn as I go, and then I'll fix it if I do. But you just have to start somewhere and then go move on. I'll kind of try to talk through my process of how I think as I go, so hopefully that helps. All right, so the BC is 95, AF is 29, and FC right here is 40. What would be the length of, it's asking for EF. Okay, I call it X just because it's easier, right? If you want to call it EF, whatever you want to call it. All right, so we set this up. I have a base of, I see two triangles here, right here, and then the other one I see is here. So I want to match up the base to the base, the right side to the right side of the small to the big kind of thing is how I think. So if we set this up, I say the base of the small is X. Divide by the base of the big is 95. The right side of the small is 29. Divide by the right side of the big. Well, this is 40, this is 29. Add the two together to get the total of the right side. Now, the whole point of this is we've got three things that we know, and then you try to find one thing. Just a minute, I gotta pause it for a sec. Okay, so I can't remember where I was at before because it was a little bit ago, but you'll just multiply 95 times 29, divide by 69 to complete this. So I'm grabbing my calculator, 95 times 29, divide by 69, and that equals 39, I need the pen, 39.93 to 2 decimal places. Okay, so that would be EF is X. That's what we solved for. Okay, next problem. Okay, another geometric mean one. We'll do another example that's like that. If the geometric mean of 21 and a is 9 times the square root of 7, find the value of a. So you multiply 21 times a, take the square root of it, and that equals whatever it told you was that geometric mean. 9 squared of 7. So again, square both sides to get rid of the square root. And on the left, you have 21a. That equals 9 squared, which is 81, times by 7, because 9 squared is this, and the square root and the square cancel each other out. So 81 times 7. 81 times 7 is 567. So we have 21a equals 567. Divide by 21, divide by 21, and you get 27. So the value of a is 27 if that's the geometric mean. All right, let's get it so that we can see this one. Okay, RM. If RM is 12, LR is 7, MQ, big side, is 16, find TQ right here. This is what we're trying to find. We'll call it X. So let's set up our proportion. You go, and this is the corresponding of the sides that we were given information for, because we want this section here. So we go X to 16, which is the whole. So you go this small part to the whole is equal to the small part that corresponds with X to the whole. The whole is 19. Multiply 16 times 7, divide by 19, and you get 5.89. That is TQ. Yeah, to 2 decimal places. Okay. Question 10. If AF right here is 20, FC 32, and the area of ABC, so the area of the big triangle, okay, is 845. So the area, we'll just write here, is 845. Then calculate the area of the small triangle. Okay, so if you say the proportion, the area of the big is 845. Their area from the small to the big is 20 divided by the total, which is 52. Now that's just the side, the portion of a side. So if you simplify 20 over 52, you get, and I'm just 5/13. Okay, so the area of the big triangle is 5/13. So you take the area of the big triangle, multiply it by the proportion that you set up, the 5/13, and because it's area and it's square, that little 2 right here, you're going to square the proportion. The reason you do that is because it's a length times width thing, which the proportions would change from both length and the width. And so you just multiply that area by your portion squared. If it was volume, it would be cubed. And when we do perimeter, we don't square it because it's just you're adding the outside edges. It's not something times something. So you look at this little figure right here, and that tells you the difference. So take 845 times 5/13 squared, and you get 125. Now think about it and see if it makes sense. If you have an area of 845 for the big triangle, then the smaller one would be 125. It would be quite a bit less. If you got a much bigger number, then this is probably flipped. You probably have this ratio, the bigger number over the smaller number. So just keep that in mind as you're trying to solve that and make sure that it makes sense. The area of the bigger triangle would be bigger than the area of the smaller. All right, let's do another example. This is a perimeter one. So we don't have to square our side. We're just going to multiply it by your portions, your proportion or your ratio. So if AF is 20, FC right here is 28, and the perimeter of the small triangle is 50. The perimeter of the small right here, is 50. We want to calculate the perimeter of the big. So keep in mind, it will go bigger. All right, so if we go the ratio of the side, we go 20 to the total, which is 48. Now this, if you simplify that right there, 20 over 48, you get 5/12. Now that's going to take it smaller. So flip that, because you're going the area of the smaller triangle. We want to make it the proportion size that much bigger. So take your 50, multiply it by the reciprocal of this to get it to the size of the bigger triangle. Okay, so as you do that, you just flip that reciprocal. So 50 times 12 divided by 5 is 120. So the perimeter of the big triangle, I'll just write it down here, is 120. So hopefully that makes sense. You get this ratio, you see that that's really making it smaller, the fraction. And so flip it, because we're going from the small triangle to the big. So it just depends on what way they're asking you to go. If they give you a perimeter of a big, then you want to use this fraction. If they give you the small, you want to use the bigger fraction. So anyway, just keep that in mind as you solve those different types of problems. Okay, so let's label this one. If AH is 14, AF on this side is 18, FC is 39, what would be the distance from A to D? So it's asking you for this distance. And that's a total distance. We've got similar triangles because of these angles here and such. So we will just set this up. All right, we go the small side here to the big. So add 18 and 39 to get the big side. So it's 57. 18 plus 39 is 57. So we went from the small to the total, or the big, and now we want to go from the small here to the total, which is, we'll call AD, which is what they want, or call it X, whatever you want. So multiply 57 times 14 and divide by 18, and you get 44.33. Now I might have made some mistakes here, just so you know, as I'm solving these quickly, going through them. Let me know if I did make mistakes, but and some of them might be calculation errors, whatever, but just know that that happens when you're doing different problems and stuff. You do make mistakes, just go back and correct them if you do. All right, so now we've got RM is 11, LR is 9, MQ, the whole thing, I'm just going to do the line here so I know, and find TQ. Call it X. From here to here is what we're trying to find. We set that up as this, and we have these corresponding sides and such. So we go X divide by the total is equal to 9 divide by the total, which is 20. Cross multiply 16 times 9 divide by 20, 7.2. Okay, so this should be 7.2 right here. Okay, let's fill in this one. Let's see. It looks like the two here in the end are similar. AF is 15, FC 24, and the area of ABC, the big area, is 845. Okay, so set that again in a proportion from the small to the big, and it's still just that same proportion. So 15 divided by, not 24, to 15 divided by the total, which is 39. Simplify that. and you get 5/13. Okay, that's the fraction, because from going from one side to the big, and it's going to be squared. So you take 845 times that by 5/13 squared, because you take your proportion of what you found and square it. Now you can see this is less than 1, it's going smaller. And so that's how I figure out whether it's 5/13 or 13/5. If it gave you the small and wanted the big, then I would flip this and do it that way. But here's what we have. 845 times by 5 divided by 13 squared is 125. So the area of the smaller triangle would be 125. Oh, clear that out. And one more problem that we'll figure out. Okay, AH is 11, AF is 16, FC from here to here is 43. What would be the distance between A and D, the total here? So I go small to big, call that one X, because that's what we want to find out, is equal to the small that corresponds to the big. Add those together and it's 59. 16 and 43, 59. So multiply 59 times 11 divided by 16 is equal to 40.56. Okay, if you do have further questions, or if this is not making sense to you, please call me, come to my office hours. Let's figure this out together. All right, let's make sure that you understand and are able to solve this. Call me personally if you need to. Whatever you need to do, let's get you on track.